Hooligans! We back. Can't stop, won't stop. We are back again 3 days later. We're on fire right now. So I'm not letting that fire go out. Like I said, I'm going to keep riding this momentum. You guys are crushing it, so I'm going to keep crushing it too. So I got another quick episode, and I mean it. This one will be quicker. Just to keep us moving along through the off season. Had a great week last week. We're going to crush it again. And then soon enough, we'll be sitting back just waiting for the draft to begin. So let's get into it. Episode 3 of the Hooligans League podcast. Let's go.
It's time!
Every day I'm hooligan. Every day I'm hooligan. Every day
All
I'm
right.
hooligan.
So today we got a super short agenda because we're the best league ever, and we're just gonna keep chucking away at this. Today is just a very quick recap of last week. You know, the money stuff, the trade deadline, rivalry week. We had a pretty good week last week. We'll touch on that very quickly. And then we're going to start talking about rules and roster construction. So I have a couple proposals that I want to get into. And then if we can chop those out of the way, then we can open up to see what else we want to change or just decide we want to keep it the same. And then I have one last feeler I want to throw out to you all. This is not a proposal yet, but I want to see if you would be interested in hearing more about a potential change that I think could have some really positive benefits for us. So that's the agenda. Recap, couple rule changes, and then a teaser, I should say. I'm hoping that by the end of this week, we have everything locked in for our off-season work. So then the rest of the off-season is just getting ready for the draft and looking back at past seasons. So should be a much lighter lift for the next month or so after this week, and we can just have fun. So that's why I'm keeping this one short. We can just get through it, and then hopefully we only have a couple other things to talk about before we kick our feet back and relax. So let's get into it. Recap, then some rules.
Lumberg fucked her. I see who else.
Okay, so buy-in and payouts confirmed. We are upping the ante by $10 to adjust for some things that we added this year. So now the buy-in is $210. Weekly prizes remain the same. Some of you might have saw that I had a typo on the survey that said $20 to the top scoring loser. That is supposed to be $10. Weekly prizes remain the exact same. Regular season prizes, we're running those back as well. The only big change regarding payouts is adding in the toilet champion, who will receive $50. Fourth, fifth, and sixth place now receive prizes going from $50 up to $125. And the first place prize is a little smaller than it was last year. But besides that, everything else is the same. The most you can win this year is just over $1,400, and the most you can lose is $220, and that is if you lose your rivalry week matchup. So nice and clean. I love our structure. A lot of money up for grabs. Speaking of rivalry week, so we have our trade deadline party booked. And what we have determined is that winners sleep well in our league. So rivalry week will take place the week before the trade deadline, which is Saturday 18th. So that weekend, we'll be heading up to the Cape. The weekend before, you will go up against your rival. The winner of that gets $10 from their rival, and then they get bed priority. Regardless, if you're the number one seed, you automatically get the first pick of beds. So those 2 weeks are going to be a fun couple of weeks for us. We have rivalry week, a lot on the line. And then the following week, we have the trade deadline party. That's in the Cape. It's at East Sandwich, so we're just over the Sagamore Bridge, so it's not too far of a drive. It's an hour from Boston. I looked up an hour 15 from Holliston, and then 1.5 from Worcester and Maynard. So not too bad if you're driving, outside of traffic hours. Check-ins at 4 p.m. So we'll probably golf before. I know I plan to, assuming the weather's warmer. I've spoken to a couple people. Rick put it in the group chat. So ideally, you can take off Friday work or maybe take off the afternoon, get some golf in on the way. But we'll figure all that stuff out when we get much closer. Food, booze, having blackout periods for trades. We'll figure that out when we get closer to it. And the last thing we brought in and confirmed are penalties. So, if you start someone this year who doesn't play, then you owe the league a 30 pack that you'll bring to the party for each time you do that, or I guess an equivalent to a 30 pack. And then if it's after the party, then it's $10 to first place. That prize pool gets bigger if you start someone who doesn't play. And then also, you got to be better at delivering the trophy. So for each month you don't hand that trophy over after the season, your bed selection in the upcoming year goes down. So you could win rivalry week, and if it took you a couple months to deliver your trophy, you might still be picking in the middle of the pack. So some fun penalties. They probably won't come into play too much, but nice to get them in there. So now I have a couple of things that I'd like to propose at the moment. Just two, because we've done some good work over the years. But that doesn't mean we have to stop there. Be looking for ideas. If there are ideas out there, then we can talk about them. And I'll have another survey for you to vote on these two things. And in there, you can add suggestions for the next podcast, or you can throw them in the group chat. But I have two at the moment. And I think both have been discussed either by me or people have proposed them before, kind of in passing. And now we're diving into them. So the first one is a smaller bench. And the proposal is to remove one bench spot. This has been thrown out by a couple of people in passing before, kind of a little late, not really at the right time where we can just make adjustments right before the draft. But I've always been kind of for it. And I think there was a time period we really couldn't, it probably wasn't worthwhile to look into it because of COVID. And the unpredictability of the last couple of seasons among rosters. But now, COVID, that's not even real anymore. We've gotten used to having an IR spot, and I think that's been successful for us. I think we now can examine if we can bring down the bench spot by one. And so to me, there are three main points to doing it. But in the end, you have the right to vote against it if you feel that it will not help our league. So here are the three reasons that stand out to me. And if you would like to add more in the chat, by all means, do so. Roster management. So roster management goes up with a smaller bench. We already have a bigger bench than most leagues. This will put more emphasis on us managing our rosters. So one less roster spot means that we have to be smarter with our bench, and it just pushes us in challenging situations that you have to really think through when you're drafting your team. But then you have to keep top of mind throughout the season. Do you need a second tight end if you draft one of those big guys? So if you draft Travis Kelce or one of those top guys, now you have to decide, do you need a second tight end? Those that didn't get one of those top guys, now maybe there's one or two backups that are available. So it adds more wrinkles, more movement. Do you drop your kicker or your defense during their bye weeks? That can be a tough decision. Taking one bench spot makes it even tougher. Are you stacking lottery tickets on your team or moving for depth? By removing the bench spot, it pushes teams to really have a strategy going into their year, and you start to see more identities across the league. And then, once we see a winner, we see which strategy proved to be most successful. And I think it just adds more excitement. It also opens up the doors for people to make some really bad decisions, and we get to laugh at them. So roster management being emphasized to me is a win. The second one, less trigger trades. When I say trigger trades, I mean people getting triggered because of a trade. So one thing we know will happen if we reduce the bench spot is there will be fewer third string quarterback trades happening because teams won't be as willing to just scoop up a fourth quarterback who's now going to start maybe a game because they don't have as many spots on their bench. And when I say they, I've done that. I feel like every year, and people get frustrated by it. One way to try to solve that issue, besides capping the number of quarterbacks that a team can have, which I don't love maximum. I don't love dictating what you can and can't do throughout the year, is reducing the bench a bit. So now it's much harder for someone to just pick up a fourth quarterback and then sell them at an inflated value for someone who can contribute, because a team is desperate. So if you're a team who does lose a quarterback or even a tight end, one of those positions that there's not as much depth at, then you should be able to get your replacement easier because it doesn't make as much sense for people to just throw some guy on their roster for a couple weeks to maybe play them, or more likely just try to trade them. So I imagine people will be less pissed off if we remove a bench because people won't be able to get rated when injuries happen because it should just be easier to replace people. The third thing, so more strategy, less angry people. The third thing is it should be more fun. The waiver wire should be fucking hot if we remove a bench spot. That's 12 more guys who are available every week, which means we're more likely to have some real difference makers on the waiver wire, which should result in some great fab fights. The fab battles have been great over the years. They should get even better. And when you're managing your bench and you're trying to figure out who's worth it, when that really appealing player comes on, which should happen more often and better guys, it's going to be a battle to see how you handle that and who gets them. So that is my proposal. It adds more strategy. It should balance out the league, especially with trades and our backup quarterbacks, resulting in less people mad, and waiver wires should get pretty crazy. One other way we can move in this direction without going all the way in is we could just remove our IR slot. Now, I like the IR slot. I think it adds a nice element of strategy, and benefits you when you truly need it because someone is hurt. But we could just remove that instead of removing a bench spot, which means that every week or so there could be anywhere from 3 to 8 more players available. So we still should have a better waiver wire. We should still have to manage our roster better, and it still is less likely that there's some gross trades due to desperate teams out there. So that's one direction. I lean towards removing the bench, but we could also remove the IR. We operated for years without it and only brought it in because of COVID. So I don't think that. I think that's a good option as well. The second proposal I have, it's really not even a proposal. I have 3 options for something we need to figure out. Now that we have the toilet bracket, an official part of our league, we need to figure out what we're going to do with waivers now that we have 12 teams participating in the postseason. I in the past have leaned towards just locking them all out, and because we don't want our championship being impacted by the toilet bracket. But now that they're a part of their league, I think we really do need to consider multiple options. So I have 3 different routes, and we'll vote on which one we think is the best. So the first one is everyone remaining can bid on players. So if you're in the playoffs or in the toilet bracket and you haven't been eliminated yet, you have full access to everything you do as you would throughout the season. So you can pick up free agents, you can make waiver wire moves, you can make bids. And really, that just puts more emphasis on saving fab dollars throughout the season. Because if you don't, and you are in the playoffs, your championship could be in jeopardy if you don't manage that well, because there will be more teams competing for the players available than there have been in recent years. So this is an okay one to me. I just want to throw it out there that the risk is a championship could be decided because some toilet bracket team got a player, got some, or multiple toilet bracket teams got players, and a team in the playoffs wasn't able to make a move and got screwed. Now that's kind of the turf with playing fantasy football. You will have to manage our fab differently this year if that's the case, but an easy to implement approach to this, and then it will make fab fierce during those playoffs, which could be an exciting element. So that's one option. Everyone can participate. Option number 2 is fuck the toilet bracket. Fuck them. They're not competing for over $1,000. They don't need players. They should have figured out their depth before the playoffs started. And so for this, only playoff teams would be able to pick up players. Toilet bracket teams would make sure they have the roster that they're going to have throughout the playoffs, and then they play as the teams they have. Similar to a lot of dynasty leagues. A lot of dynasty leagues, the whole playoffs, even the regular playoffs, you don't get to pick up players. You only can compete with the team that you have. So that's the fuck the toilet bracket. Really puts emphasis on the playoffs, getting the players they need to compete at the highest level, and toilet bracket have to prepare in advance for their games. The third option is a mixture of both. So playoff teams would automatically get priority for free agents and waivers, but toilet brackets can still play. So the way this would work is that toilet bracket teams would lose all their fab dollars. You can't bid on players. Well, you can, but it would be a $0 bid. So you can still get anyone you'd like as long as you don't get outbid. And then the remaining playoff teams would get bumped up in waiver priority every week so that they have priority over the toilet bracket. So this is a mixture of the two. It's kind of a win on both sides. I think this is where I'm leaning personally, but I'm comfortable with any of the directions. We could fuck the toilet bracket, or we could fuck the playoff teams and let everyone compete. This one's a middle. And so you still get to improve your team and fight for that $50 prize if you didn't make the playoffs. And if you're a playoff team, as long as you're on top of it, you should be able to get anyone that you can afford. And if you can't, if you didn't get someone due to the toilet bracket, that really is probably just because you weren't on top of your game. So we have to make a call on this because it could become an issue for us. And I'll probably need to set up certain restrictions in the league, and I just have to play around with how this will work on the back end of things, but we need to make a call on this. So figure out which one you like, or just say you don't care. Well, you'll do what everyone else says, and we'll make a call on this. The last thing is one that some of you may not be excited to explore. You may be big on tradition, history. You may just not like change. This one is a bit horrifying if how I just described that hypothetical person is similar to you. because I'm throwing out the question if it's time for a new era. Is it time to move on from Yahoo? Now, I'm not proposing the exact change just yet. I want to hear if you're even open to this. This is something I've thought about for a couple of years now for various reasons. And if you're even open, then on the next episode of the podcast, I will do the full roadshow of the benefits that would come with making a change. And we then can vote. But in the survey, I'm going to include a question if you're even open to the idea. And before you make that decision, I do have a couple of quick highlights that I'm not going to go into detail, but will maybe tickle your fancy into hearing some more. And so those are, if we were to switch to Sleeper, that is the one that I am proposing. Not going to ESPN. ESPN sucks. I'm not going to other sites that mostly operate on the desktop. If we were to change, it would be to Sleeper. And if you haven't used Sleeper, it's a much more sophisticated app, I guess I would say. The app was designed specifically for fantasy sports in mind. It's designed for the app itself more than the desktop website. And to me, there are a few benefits that would just take our league to the next level. There'd be better trash talk and communication. Their communication tools are much better than Yahoo, and it's much better than a group chat with 11 iPhones and 1 Android. So you would be able to trash talk better. There's features in there where you can pin messages so you never actually like miss something important. That would get better. That would be more fun. It's just there's more features in it than Yahoo. It's more customizable. They clearly have like fantasy experts leading their development. They have people all over Reddit that work for Sleeper that are collecting feedback. Yahoo really doesn't make any changes or additions every year. It's the same thing. It's weird because they're like the number one Yahoo fantasy site, but they really don't do much. They don't have a good podcast. They don't make updates. It's kind of weird. So there's more customization. And for our league, I mean, we're a premier league. We should eventually be on a tool that can allow us to do whatever we want. 3, there's built-in weekly reports, which makes it cool. You can see a lot of different stats from the matchups. You don't have to rely on the podcast or like the end of week reports that come out between your matchup and Yahoo that are like the same repeated language every time. So just some more add-ons. And then 4, we wouldn't lose all of our league history. We can actually import our Yahoo into this. So that's like the short version of this. I can actually walk you through and show you what it looks like if you're open to it. So when fill out the survey,
yes, more homework.
Because there is more homework. Let me know if you're even open.
Shit, though. Yes, more
And
homework.
if everyone across the board is not for it, then we
shit,
won't. But know
Yes,
that
more
I'm doing
homework.
my full-on proposal next year.
The standard shit, though.
If you are open,
Yes, more homework.
then let me know.
The standard shit,
And if
though.
you're like, fuck it,
Yes,
I'll
more
just do
homework.
it, then let me know that
Um,
too. So that just so I know how
standard shit,
much,
though.
like,
Yes,
how
more
hard do I
homework.
have to sell this next week if I'm going to try to get
The
yes
standard shit,
votes
though.
from you guys? So
Yes, more homework.
fill out the survey. There'll be a couple questions on the rule changes, a question on Sleeper and Yahoo. And it should be pretty short. And then there'll also be an opening for if you have a rule change that you'd like to propose on the next podcast episode, which will come probably later this week. Fill that in there and then send me some moolah. If you haven't already, send me at least 106, which covers the house, or 210, which covers your buy-in. If you're like, fuck it, I'll just get it all the way now, go ahead, send me 316. I have an Excel tracker that's keeping track of everything, so it really doesn't even matter what you send me. You could even send me $50. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to update the document, and I'll know that you still owe me 266 or whatever it is. So that's the homework for the week. That's episode number 3. I think I kept it under 20 minutes. We'll see. But let's keep chirping in the chat. Let's keep throwing ideas out there. And let's just keep crushing it. All right, y'all. Peace out.
Best in the business when it comes to a quarterback sneak.
Let's go! Let's go!